Hello everyone, it's time to go over the week 11 lab and walk through what the solution will look like, what I'm expecting of you this week. So in the last video we had a rather long kind of live development discussion where I wrote a program that analyzed a CSV file. We looked at kind of an optimal way of doing it and a non-optimal way of doing it. So we went over a good deal of what's in the lab this week, and you're going to notice that the template is eerily similar to the lesson that I did in video 1102, where we talked about kind of optimality and large files. So what did I do? I gave you a large CSV file. There are 500,000 entries in this file. It's about 25 megs. And the CSV file, there's 500,000 rows, and there are 3 columns. In the first column, you have a name. So let me, I don't know if I can zoom in Notepad. Yeah, I can. Look at that. First column, there's a full name, first and last name. In the second column, there's an email address. And in the third column, there's the country that they live in. So what we're going to do is you're going to have your Python script load this up, place it into a dictionary sorted by email address as the key. So email address will be the key, and then you're going to put the list that makes up each row in the value to that corresponding key. So for instance, the dictionary entry for key tmiller@hortonlambert.net will be a list with item 0, so index 0 being Lee Tapia. Item of index 1 will be the email address, and item index 2 will be the country. And then the user, you're going to prompt the user to enter an email address. You're going to take that email address the user entered, and you're going to check the dictionary to see if that entry exists. And if it does, you're going to display to the user the corresponding name and country. So if the user enters tmiller@hortonlambert.net, your program should output Lee Tapia lives in American Samoa. If it's invalid, I mean, the great thing about the dictionary entry is if not, you'll know, and you just say the username not found. So let's run it. I'll run the solution. All right, loading data. So that person here, I got it. I'm at Lee Tapia. So the email address is tmiller@horton. tmiller@hortonlambert.net. You may be wondering, where the heck did I get all this? There's a Python package called Faker. And you can use Faker to generate fake names and emails. So you'll notice that the email addresses don't necessarily correspond to the names. Rather, I just wrote a program to say, hey, give me 500,000 rows of a fake name, a fake email, and a country, and just randomly select the country. All right, so if I enter this email address, we see match found. Lee Tapia lives in American Samoa, and I'll open up the CSV file here. Instead of on my own desktop, I'm in a VM. That is correct. So if I were to type in CRUIZ@yahoo.com, we see Brenda Baker lives in Burundi, and there you go. So we'll go to the code. You'll notice I keep asking if I type in stop. Obviously, the program stops. Oh, and one more thing. Very important. If I type in data that isn't there, it should tell me no email found. All right, so let's look at the template. So a lot of this I've done for you. So, and again, this is going to be eerily similar to the previous video. So I should put a comment there. I've, again, made a nice title here, and I let the user know that we're loading the data. And I've gone ahead and done this part for you. We take the fake data.csv file that's going to be included in the Git repository, and we create a reader, and then I create a new dictionary for you. And your first job here is to save each row into the dictionary, context dictionary. Again, I've created a blank dictionary for you on line 18, with each key being the email address, and contained in that row and the value being the row itself. So that means, again, if we have Lee Tapia, the key for that dictionary item would be tmiller@hortonlambert.net, and the value would be a list with 3 items. Item of index 0 would be Lee Tapia. Item of index 1 would be tmiller@hortonlambert.net. Item of index 2 would be American Samoa. But go back and watch the development process that I took in the final code in the second video. It sounds like a lot of work, but I believe it's 3 lines here. Hold on, let me pause the video and look. Even easier, the solution of part 1 is 2 lines long. There you go. So there's another hint for you. All right, so again, line 26 and 27 here, which once you put 2 lines in there, that might be 28 and 29. We tell the user the data set's loaded. And again, this goes back to good practice. Not only do you want nice comments in your code, but you want to tell the user, hey, this program looks good, it's easy to use, and you want to provide relevant information. So you're going to notice with a line of 500,000 lines that this is going to take 5 to 10 seconds to load, maybe longer if you have an older machine. I mean, I'm on a really slow VM right now. It only took a couple seconds, but you could see that delay. And it's actually pretty nice because on line 14, we tell the user we're loading data. There's a period of time where our program's actually doing something. And then on line 27, we say the data set's loaded. It was very informative to the user. It provided me some context. It's almost like a progress bar when you're installing a program. All right, parts 2 and 3 are very similar. Also, again, watch that video. We're going to define in part 2 a function that returns a full name given an email address. Again, since this is a dictionary lookup and you're past the email address, hint, hint, the email address is the key. So you're going to have to do 2 things here. 1, check if the key exists in the dictionary. Another hint, use the in operator in a conditional statement. If the key exists, then return that full name. And then also remember, the name is at index 0, the email is at index 1, and the country is at index 2. So use all that to formulate a function here. Now, if the name exists, return the name. If the name doesn't exist, return a blank string. Part 3, your code should be exactly the same as part 2, except for the fact that instead of accessing the index where the full name resides, you're going to access the index where the country resides. And you're going to, again, return the country if that email exists, if that key exists in the dictionary. And if it doesn't, you're going to return a blank string. All right, part 4. Well, this is kind of the meat of the program. I've done some of it for you. And I also want to call out, again, good user interface practice. We're asking the user, what email would you like to search? And then you may have seen this. I mean, when you're in a command prompt, you see a caret. I'm having an input string and a nice little caret where the user can enter their information, kind of separate from the question. So if you see here on the screen at the very bottom, what email would you like to search? Type stop to exit. There's 2, I guess, chevrons there. And then you see my cursor blinking. And if I start typing an email address or whatever, it's nicely placed. If I hit enter, we get nice feedback. Your program should look good. It should be very easy to understand. An end user shouldn't have to open up a help guide or a manual to understand how your program works. And it's a delicate balance between providing too much information and too little information. But what's key is a good design premise, almost like an Apple product, where an end user should be able to use what you've built and what you've created without having to look at a manual. It should be intuitive. So let's go back to the code. So I've done this for you. I created an initial variable input string, and this will accept the input data from the user. And if you notice, I keep asking the question over and over, what email would you like to search? Type stop to exit. All I did was I created a while loop, and it checks the input string, and while it's not equal to all uppercase stop, it just keeps going. So it's actually a really simple UI feature. So next in this while loop, we're going to print what email would you like to search, and then I do that kind of double chevron input string, and I grab the input from the end user and put it in the variable input string. And this is where you're going to write your code. So if the input string is not equal to stop, then starting at line 59 here, this is where you write your code. You're going to call the find name function to return the first and last name corresponding to that email address. Now we knew when we wrote that function that if it returns an empty string, we didn't find anything. There's no key, no email address. So if that's the case, tell the user no name found. However, if a name was found, if it comes out with something other than a blank string, you're then going to want to make a further call to find country, passing in that email address to return the country, and then display that information to the user. And then we did an if statement up here, if input string is not equal to stop, and then all I did was, and this is actually unnecessary, but I wrote it so that you could understand the difference between when the user enters stop and when they don't. If the user enters stop, that's the else case here. We're going to continue. It's going to jump back up to line 54. And this condition will fail because input string would be equal to stop and the program would end. I also understand from line 59 to line 64, you could do this without calling functions. I'm asking you to do so because, again, I want you to get practice writing functions. So the correct solution to this will be calling two functions, find country and find name. And that's about it. Again, your program should look like mine here. It should look this nice. Again, you're welcome to replace my comments with whatever comments you would like. I encourage you to do so. It helps you to understand what you're doing. And again, if you have any questions, please let me know. I know that the format this week with the live code demonstration in the second video, it's a little different. But again, as we go the next couple of weeks, you're going to be with your group, your projects. I guess I'll find out from I'm going to look at the quiz results if they're group or individual. But with your projects, you're going to be writing all this yourself. So again, it's good to get used to this sort of kind of masterclass coding style. Get used to seeing code being developed, and you get some insight, especially with the video this week, of how I write code. Sometimes you screw up. I have a couple of instances in the code this week where I make some mistakes, go back, make some corrections. I'm sure you run into that too. So again, everybody develops a little differently, but it's good to get that experience, see how others develop, take some good practices, ignore the bad practices. All right, well, have a good week. Let me know if you have any questions.